Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Apollo's Odyssey. I'm your host, Apolla Asteria, and I hope you really enjoyed that intro there. I just kind of switched it up a little bit. I spent a lot of time editing it last night because I've just been kind of tired of having the same old intro in every show. I don't think it's quite done yet. I still need to make some adjustments. I also made a show closer, so I spent all night doing that last night. And yeah, just had to tweak some things in it that I just didn't really feel like worked out. Um, so I'm gonna be doing a little bit more work with that, and hopefully, but let me know what you think of that if you like that. I think that works out much better. So tonight's show, I have a very exciting guest, and so basically, he works for a company which will be undisclosed, and he can't talk about his work, but he's an aerospace engineer, and we're just going to discuss a lot of concepts that are out there that could be worked on with in the future of aviation, and where the future of aviation can go. So I'm really excited for tonight's show, and it's going to be really good. Before I bring him on, I want to remind you all to please go and check out my art if you want to help fund me and keep me going. I don't make a lot from YouTube just yet, and this is like my full-time job. So what really helps keep me going and helps keep me doing these shows and going out and doing conferences is purchasing my art. So if you would like to do that, I mean, basically it's like you're donating to me, but you get a really cool gift in return. I do next day shipping on all orders, and I have quite a few left from my last two collections still, or at least a decent amount. I probably need to start working on some more, honestly, but these are handcrafted energy chilling devices invented by yours truly, and they're all filled with copper coils, crystals, magnets, and sand I collect from sacred places around the world. They're also filled with crop circles that have been found around the world. Or, I'm sorry, painted with crop circles that have been found around the world. And also, I have this conference that I'll be speaking at in Mount Shasta. Not in Mount Shasta, on Mount Shasta. I always say in Mount Shasta. I don't know. I know there's the whole story about the Lemurians in there. I don't know. I always like to say in Mount Shasta. It just comes out. But that's going to be July 7th through 10th. And there's going to be a lot of really incredible speakers at that event. So if you'd like to come check it out, it's going to be a lot of fun. My homie Laura Eisenhower is going to be there. We got Brad Olson, not another author friend, homie, and lots of other awesome people. Ben Chastain from Edge of Wonder. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of cool people there. So this is a great lineup. I know last year it was like the most talked about conference of the year, really. So highly recommend checking this out. And you can purchase tickets from me right here. Since I'm speaking, I am selling 3 tickets. And that is to kind of support, me going up there and speaking. And be really much appreciated if you got them from me instead of off the site. And if you get them from me, I will send you proof of purchase, and I will also be sending the proof of purchase to the event organizer. So yeah, definitely want to check that out. And down below, it talks about all the highlights of the program. So Also, obviously, I have all these organite creations that I made myself for blocking EMF. So yeah, again, that's all on shamanspears.com. It's in the comments or in the show description and rolling across the ticker at the bottom of the show here. So let's bring on our guest tonight. I'm really excited for this show. It's going to be a good one. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm really excited to have you on here. It was kind of interesting how we met, during I think it was like Christmas time in Aspen. It
Yeah.
was randomly, it was the first time I ever went to Aspen. My sister was just moved there, and I just happened to find the zoo show that night on Christmas.
Oh
And
man, that was a wonderful show too.
well, the only person I ended up talking to there, really for the most part, was you, who is an aerospace engineer. So, what are the odds?
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, definitely. So, as I was saying before the show to everyone here, you work as an aerospace engineer, and we're not going to talk about the company or the work you do because that is not allowed. And, we won't touch on any topics that, aren't okay to talk about. So just making the audience aware of that. What we want to get into are these different concepts. And you, before the show, you showed me a lot of really incredible concepts on the future of aviation, what could be possible. So I'm really excited to get into that with you. And
Absolutely.
yeah. So I don't know, before maybe we get into that, do you want to maybe give a little bit of a background of maybe like your education that kind of led to your career or maybe your interests just before we kind of get into everything? Like, were you into
Yeah.
aerospace engineering growing up or?
Oh, certainly. I was really into it. Yeah. So when I was a kid, first thing I wanted to do was be a pilot. Um, so I, made the mistake of telling my mom and my godmother, and at first I really, really wanted to be a pilot, but ended up not wanting to do it. So once they found out I wanted to be a pilot, my godmother happened to own a private jet. So the first thing that they did, of course, was like, hey, let's go fly it. And the jet pretty much flew itself at the time. So that was like when I was in high school, and I was like 16 or 17 at that point in time. So I was like, man, by the time I'm a pilot, it's not even going to be any fun to fly. So I kind of changed my mind a little bit, but I
What do you mean
still loved
not
aviation.
challenged anymore?
Was that? Oh
Because
yeah,
it's not challenged anymore.
exactly. Yeah. So I was in ground school in high school, and so I was going through the whole flight kind of academy, and then it didn't. Yeah, as soon as I flew it, I was like, oh, this isn't what I hoped it would be. I was thinking more so like fighter jet style, edge of your seat, but it's fly by wire, and a lot of the mechanics are really well thought through. So in flight, there's waypoints, and you can, the GPS systems and the waypoint systems, which are really ground-based systems in the United States and throughout the world, are pretty well established. So when a plane gets into the air, they're going to attack their way to where they're going to go. So yeah, that was where it started. But then I continued to kind of have this idea around that. I was really into technology, and I was a bit of a hacker. So I did go to school for a bit, but primarily, like, most of my education was from my devious ways as a youngster. So getting into courses. Took a lot of like MOOC style courses from MIT and Harvard in online format. But in my case, I was more so interested in downloading them and not paying for them. So it was a little different.
Wow. That's really interesting to hear because, you got, obviously hired for a good company just from self-educating, you're saying.
Yeah. Yep.
That's really cool to hear.
Yeah. Well,
That's something me myself, like, recently I've been looking. I was never able to really go to college. I just came out here and did acting, and I've been thinking lately about, doing school for directing, and I'm like, man, it costs so much. I'm like, can you really get into things without schooling? I feel like it's so easy to self-teach these days. So
Yeah,
that's
it's certainly a lot better. I mean, I'd say that I was as a software engineer, you know, you kind of get in. It's kind of like you get in and then you kind of navigate to what you like. So if anybody is like, I can't necessarily speak to everything, but in the case of software engineering, I kind of got my foot in the door at a company at a very young age. I was 19. And so I got a lot of experience, working, through my career. So, as far as I think, this current portion of my career, a lot of it is based off of the experience that I had, and then of course the education part, I still think is very valuable to me. Obviously, I didn't do it traditionally, but I still use the schools in my own way. So yeah, it was really good. But yeah, I'd say that just getting the foot in the door and then getting the experience was really what enabled me. So in any case, I kind of like preach that to like pretty much everybody. I'm like, if you can do anything, just get something that's related to what you want to do, and then work at that and build your kind of skills and your credentials, and then continuously work towards the ultimate goal. So.
That's really incredible. And so, as a aerospace engineer, I mean, you know, basically, your job is working on with a spacecraft. So, I mean, I know you can't get into what you do with that. But, like there's so much in regards to full disclosure coming out right now, and spacefaring technology is obviously ramping up. And, there's we were talking before the show about the efficiency of aircraft or spacecraft and how it's evolving. Like I always like to bring up on my show about the ships that can go from New York to LA. And like, they've been talking about ships. I've been seeing articles saying that there are like ships that can go from New York to LA in possibly like 15 minutes, that may be rolled out pretty soon here, or the ones obviously from New York to London in an hour. So what do you have to say to people who feel like this technology is like inefficient and too much cost and uses too much resources?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wouldn't say too much cost or too much resources. One of the reasons why we don't do supersonic flight is because if you're flying supersonic over land mass, you can cause damage to things. So once you break the sound barrier, you're kind of creating a high pressure zone that's going to kind of reverberate, and it's going to, especially if you're doing it constantly. So we have had supersonic flight, for quite a while, but because of the noise and because of the kind of issues around dealing with a plane's body going supersonic and the wave of energy that is released, they don't allow it. So even at air shows, I think like they'll get close to supersonic, and you'll see a shroud appear, but they will pull back before they break the sound barrier, because it's a pretty extreme force. So I believe that currently, there's a project being worked on that is kind of more so focused on like making sure that the airfoil and the shape of the airplane kind of absorb the supersonic shockwave. So there's less of that energy released towards potentially buildings or the ground or people that could be in the flight path. So that's kind of one of the big challenges. And then another thing is that yeah, it does. Anytime you go faster, you do get a slight, I shouldn't say slight, but it's a quadratic kind of inefficiency. But I think it really depends on the fuel that you're using. And so in certain cases, like if like a rocket, for example, rockets, burn a ton of fuel to get to space, but at the same time, they're breaking the sound barrier and they're doing a lot of things, but it's just the trajectory. So yeah, I think there's different ways to achieve it, and there's just some challenges just around the amount of energy that's being released by an aircraft currently, that you can't go over things. That's why they had the transatlantic for the supersonic flights. But yeah, there are planes, and then as far as like planes that can beat that, so I don't know if they'll do it in planes, just because I think there's a little bit of a thought process that why have a person do it when you can have a not person do it, in terms of high speed flight. But there's a in the the ramjets, or the supersonic flight getting from New York to LA in an hour, that was achievable a while ago with the SR-71 Blackbird, and the other flight vehicles that were its cousins. And but the later technology, the things that are going to really kind of make it so that we go even faster are going to be the ramjets, or scramjets, I should say. So ram to scram, and so those are like pretty much no moving parts, but they compress the air and release enough gas that you'll get the fuel burn in a high enough efficiency to fly very quickly. So.
Awesome. And so, like, so basically you're saying for these supersonic flights, it's kind of the sound barrier and, basically like where the launch pads are located. Like, would it be possible for there to be more launch pads like set up in places around the world that are like not too close to the cities? Or do you think it'd be better that, spacecraft just kind of evolves in a way where that won't be a problem, the sound barrier?
Yeah, hopefully the changes to the way that the airfoil is, and its ability to absorb that energy and use it as useful force to fly, proliferates. I think that would be really good. So it's something that's I think being looked at right now, and if they can figure it out, that would potentially make it so that we could do that on a regular basis. The other thing is that you go really high, so you don't necessarily have to do that, but the issue is, like, a lot of times when they're about to break the sound barrier, they're doing it at a lower altitude where there's a little bit more air density. So I don't know, it might be that you could probably do it if you like strapped a rocket to a supersonic capable flight, so that it wouldn't have to breathe air in order to reach the supersonic speed. And then once it reached it, you could then turn off the rocket, or stop the fuel from running to that and allow it to continue to fly. So there's different ways that you could accomplish it, I think. But yeah, I guess that you're right, that people wonder about the fuel for that. And my thing is, like, hydrogen should definitely be something that we look into for doing future flight.
Yeah, before the show, you were talking to me about this, and I have a lot of links pulled up here that you sent me, and I'm really fascinated by these concepts that you got together. I don't know can I say that with what you've been kind of, as a joke, kind of been working on for me?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so Jason here. So I've been saying on my show forever that I really just want my own flying saucer. And Jason here has like seen some of my episodes and said, like, I think I know how this could be possible. So he calls it the Paula Chariot. And I was trying to, before the show, figure out how to upload this. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because it
Did I send it in the
is
wrong format?
in a PDF. Yeah, I think because it was in a PDF, I'm not actually able to download it, or it's just the name of it makes it so that it's somewhere further back in my downloads. I'm trying to figure that out. Wait, maybe it's here. Nope. Yeah, so yeah, I can't really find it in here, unfortunately. But yeah, you have it on your iPad. Oh wait, okay, hold on. Actually, okay, hold on. I have it
Yeah,
in
and
my
I haven't had as much time as I haven't had a lot of time to work on it because, like I said, I started to think about it, a while back, and then I headed out to Argentina for a bit. So I haven't been, actively able to do too much. But I'm sending as a PNG if that helps.
Okay, and
This,
actually, I can
honestly,
show my entire screen here, and this may work. So let me see.
oh yeah, and honestly, this is like I kind of put it together right before this, so it's not the
Do you
end
see
game,
this
but
here?
yeah, I can
Okay.
see it.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so this is what he sent me. This is the concept, which is pretty awesome. So can you describe this here?
Right. This is a very slim drawing of kind of what would be in my head, but the idea is that I've never seen a very properly made disc-based airfoil or kind of built-in wing. So this essentially it generates its lift from the shape of the body when it's in horizontal flight. But yeah, there's a bunch of things because I wanted to make sure that it was like battery powered, right? And a lot of people say we're talking about the impossible, right? The battery powered flight, and how do you achieve something like that because the energy density isn't high enough right now for really long range travel with a battery. But my idea, I was like, well, you'd have to offset. So one of the ways that you would offset that is by using the battery's extreme weight to also in a different way, and that would be a flywheel. So you would have the electronic energy stored, and then you would also have you would take it and then you would kind of get some mechanical energy stored by spinning it up and getting a lot of kinetic energy into it. So if you combined it as opposed to just using simply a battery, but you turn the battery into a flywheel that you could also use, then you would.
Okay, I wanna slow you down here so that people can okay, so you're talking about what did you say this would be all combined together? It's electro um I'm sorry, it was electro something lysis or something like that?
Electrolysis. Well, the electrolysis
Electrolysis.
is for the hydrogen part. We haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, okay. So this is the flywheel. And let me know if you want me to pull up any of these articles that you sent me before so I can in case people like I'm sure a lot of people watching probably don't know what some of these things are, so I'll just read off, what so this is Wikipedia here says in case you don't know what a flywheel is. Flywheel energy storage works by accelerating a rotor to a very high speed and maintaining the energy in the system as rotational energy. When energy is extracted from the system, the flywheel's rotational speed is reduced as a consequence of the principle of conservation of energy. Adding energy to the system correspondingly results in an increase in the speed of the flywheel. Most FES systems use electricity to accelerate and decelerate the flywheel, but devices that directly use mechanical energy are being developed. So is that kind of what you were talking about here with a different device working with that?
Yeah. So you would take the battery, which has it's a lot of weight, and you would turn it. You would still store the energy as the battery cells, but then you would also then take those battery cells and spin them up at a high speed so that then they also have flywheel energy or kinetic energy on top of having that electrical energy. And so you would offset a little bit more of the weight cost that you get associated with it. And well, I don't want to go too far into it because I'm going to start jumping around, but yeah, there's some pretty neat things that you can do when it comes to like balancing in airplanes you have to get the center of gravity right, and if you have something like a flywheel, you can actually do some interesting things around the centrifugal force and getting the center of gravity to play in a certain way that you might like. So
Yeah, and so getting into the battery aspect of it, which of these articles did you send me that um kind of explains that? Should we go over one of these for audience? Was it this one that kind of explains that in a little more detail?
Yeah, so the performance, this is a good one. So this one basically just has like a formula for understanding what the energy density would need to be in order for commercial aircraft to run on a battery. So there's a formula down there, and obviously we don't need to go into formulas right now because this is more just like conversational. But
Oh,
let's
this
see.
formula you're talking about
Yeah,
right here.
yeah. So
Do you know how to read this? Can you look at this and know
it
exactly how
would
to?
take me a little bit of time to go through it for sure. I'm not I'm not a calculator at all. So I'm a software engineer. So my thing is like I only have to solve the problem once, really, and then the computer does the rest of the time. So
So you're saying so there's like a certain kind of battery that's being used now, and you're saying um a different kind of battery. So you were mentioning before the show, like Elon Musk, he may be developing a new kind of battery that's more not electrical powered or
yeah, there's
electrical
different types of
powered
batteries.
that can be
I'm not
used.
aware of what Elon Musk is working on, but yeah, there's like chemical batteries, which might be more useful. They have I shouldn't say chemical batteries, but batteries that there's different ways of storing energy, and yeah, you can call it a battery. But yeah, it's not necessarily going to charge and discharge the same way. It might completely degrade, and then you have to recycle the materials. Um, so there's things like that that could potentially do that at pretty low cost. Um, but yeah, so
And so you're saying you're also infusing it with hydrogen or working with
right.
hydrogen. So it's all these three things kind of together.
So yeah, the
Um,
third part of the lift would be the hydrogen, and so you'd have a battery, a flywheel, and then water. And it's technically not legal in the United States to have a hydrogen lift aircraft. So you'd have to like either go out to the ocean and experiment, or go to another country that allows you to experiment on things like that. But if you were to say, okay, this battery is too heavy to allow this plane to fly efficiently to get a very long distance, well, instead of trying to make it so that you increase the energy density, you just reduce the density of the entire vehicle. And if you were to split the water atoms with electrolysis, you could make it so that you have like a balloon attached to the kind of vehicle. And in your case, in the case of the Apollo Chariot, it would be a donut balloon that goes around the exterior. And so the
and do you
balloon,
mean like a literal balloon, or is it like an inner some sort of energy balloon? It's not like a physical like thing you can see.
no, it would be a literal balloon. I know it would be cool if it was like just pure energy, but no, it would be a literal like the chamber that can expand and contract um, based off of the volume of fluid inside of it, or air inside of it. So yeah, so
Wow, that's interesting. What do you think about those like, someone came out like apparently saying they had a water powered car and then, you know, I don't know, it wasn't like a thing anymore. Do you think like that's possible, or when that happened, was that possible, the whole hydrogen powered car thing?
yeah, well, yeah, there's definitely hydrogen powered cars. Usually the hydrogen and oxygen are pre-separated before, and then they're not also in this case like for the flight mechanics. So the hydrogen first being used as a buoyancy device, but in the case of the car, yeah, you can use, you know, uh, if you have a battery or some source of other energy, you can split the water and then burn it, um, and combust it. So you can use you can actually use hydrogen in a regular piston engine if you wanted to. So yeah, it's totally possible to have a water powered car. But yeah, in most cases, you're not splitting and then reburning the molecule, you're usually just saying, okay, here's my hydrogen tank, and then you're using atmospheric oxygen, and then there's plates that the electrical charge will kind of hit and send the energy to an electrical motor. Yeah, that's how they usually do it. But you could, if you had you'd still need some other source of energy if you were just going to use water to fill it up, because you would still need to split the water, and then you would have to ignite it, in some way, shape, or form, in order to use it for mechanical energy. Or in the case of using it for electrical energy, then typically you're just taking some hydrogen, and once it's forming the water, it's not burning at all. It's just forming the water molecule without ever having an explosion, and that releases an electron, and that powers a motor. So it's really efficient, but also super inefficient in other ways. So you don't the process of electrolysis and then back into water is a very inefficient process if you look at it from that way. But there's actually one of the links I sent you. They are able to do electrolysis without having to use or expend energy, or without having to expend electrical energy. So they can just it's essentially just kind of like when you pour acid and
Is it this one?
Yeah, and yep.
Should I go ahead and read this here? Maybe a little bit of it.
Oh yeah, you can totally read that. Yeah.
Okay. So this is by Tech Explorer, a new water splitting technique to generate clean hydrogen energy. Electrolytic hydrogen production entails the generation of hydrogen from water using electrical power, which should ideally come from renewable power sources such as sunlight and wind. Although the method of producing hydrogen could be a very promising solution for increasing sustainability, but researchers will have to overcome several key challenges in order for it to become widespread. In recent study featured in Nature Energy, a team of researchers at the Technion Israel Institute of Technology have addressed some of those challenges, presenting a new technique for splitting water that could enhance existing electrolytic hydrogen production methods. Their research draws inspiration from one of their previous studies on photoelectrochemical water splitting, in which they tried to combine solar energy and water electrolysis to generate hydrogen from sunlight and water. Wow, that's incredible. One of the greatest challenges outlined in this previous work was the collection of hydrogen gas from millions of PEC cells distributed in the solar field. In their study, the Technion-based researchers tried to develop a technique that could effectively tackle this challenge. Taking photovoltaic solar plants as the base scenario, the solar farm is composed of millions of individual PV cells where the current and voltage is collected from each and every one of them into a metal grid. One of the researchers who carried out the study told Tech Explorer, "This is easy with electricity, but not so with hydrogen gas." In an ideal PEC solar plant of the future, PV cells would be replaced by PEC cells, which can produce hydrogen in a component known as cathode compartment and oxygen in a separate chamber called the anode compartment. These two compartments should be separated at the very least by a membrane in order to ensure that hydrogen and oxygen do not mix. This would cause an explosion. In addition, the hydrogen gas must be collected from each individual cell. Creating this setup has so far proved to be technically difficult and expensive, as it requires a very costly piping manifold. Ultimately, this has made the realization of solutions of large-scale hydrogen, it says here, unrealistic, but I don't know. I don't ever like to say something is unrealistic, because I think there are no problems, only solutions.
Yeah, so that's one way of doing it. They have the photovoltaic, which I think would be useful at high altitudes. I don't think that it would be useful at sea level or anything like that. But once you got up into the air, it would be more useful. And then there's the other one, and I'm not sure actually.
You
That
mean in like a anti-gravity or like above?
oh yeah, just so yeah, so you get up and you have kind of your wing space, right? And then you can kind of flow in my mind, the water would flow out, and then because you're so high in the atmosphere, you're getting a lot of sun. You're above the clouds essentially.
That's interesting because my engineer and author friend Brooks Agnew, he wrote the book Asteroid Mining, and he told me that I believe he said nuclear. I can't remember his nuclear fission or nuclear fusion technology. He always tells me it doesn't make sense that they're doing it. Scientists are trying to do it here. It would actually be better to do it in outer space, like in like kind of like I forget what it's called, like the anti-gravity like area, more in space. I guess it'd be actually easier to work with there because you don't have to like kind of contain it more.
Yeah, probably both of them, honestly. I mean, doing nuclear experiments in space, it's already super, it's a radiation zone already, so you're not really like gonna mess too much up, hopefully, right? I don't think they should do it on the moon, because don't, radiate the moon, but yeah, I mean, like if you can find like, put something in orbit, like I could see a nuclear power plant, or maybe not in our orbit, but because you have to consider if it comes back down to Earth. But yeah, there's certain things. I think maybe yeah, have a lot of potential for like nuclear experimentation. So
maybe like on an asteroid, like if we went and started mining asteroids.
Yeah,
could be done on an
yeah,
asteroid.
absolutely.
And so I had a question about the water thing or the hydrogen splitting. Would the water like keep circulating through the ship, or would you have to like add more water?
You would eventually have to add more water, but the nice thing is that water is everywhere, so you could like go
Yeah.
and set up a cloud, right?
It wouldn't matter if it's salt water or desalinated water.
Usually you want to use like desalinated, but then you have to add chemicals into it to make it more and actually I think that was one of the articles, but there's another article that actually wasn't the one that I was thinking of. It's the article, I think it's like they use aluminum, and so it's not like they're not even using like energy to create electrolysis. They're using basically like a chemical reaction. Yes, of course. The reason why hydrogen cannot be used as a flight vehicle in the United States right now, which is fun. I shouldn't say it's fun, but it's like, it's like the Hindenburg, I think several, is it almost?
Wait, I just saw a Goodyear blimp like yesterday. Is
Yeah.
that not hydrogen?
No, those
I
are
always
all helium. Those are all helium.
Oh.
Yeah, because you can't.
sorry.
Yeah, it's illegal to do hydrogen flight in the United States. So. But yeah, so essentially, if you look at this map, it shows you the weight difference that you need, or the volume metric difference that you need. You should probably scroll down just a little bit more. Yeah, just a little bit more. There's a long table, I think, in here. And it shows you, I think at the bottom of this, the difference of weight. So you have the payload for passengers, mail, and freight with helium, right? So you have that -15. And then with the hydrogen, you get the -34. But it's more of a fun kind of fantasy to think about. Oh yeah, you could use hydrogen so long as you make it ultra safe. But obviously, you still can't use it. But in the case of this, imaginary thing, it would be a very fun, lift vehicle, because you're just splitting the water in order to overcome the buoyancy, the density of the battery without having to expend as much energy to do it.
So basically, like the danger of it is that it can be bad if it explodes. But I mean, isn't that true for most most vehicles or spacecrafts? I mean,
every
like
vehicle
worse,
is gonna
I
have
guess.
most vehicles, I think, have kind of a danger of having a fire, gasoline, batteries, pretty much everything, because it's combustible, that's used for energy. So there's a lot of that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it would be really interesting to see. But So if you had all three of those things, right, you used a battery, a flywheel, and the offset of potentially like hydrogen or very light gas, you could get high enough efficiency to go a longer range with a vehicle that isn't burning, conventional fuel to do so. So the other part of having that hydrogen splitting is that once it gets up to a certain altitude, you could then take the, and you want to go from vertical to horizontal flight. You start to burn the fuel off as the for thrust. So then you get really high efficient, because you want to reduce the size of the aircraft as you start to go into horizontal flight to reduce the friction. Whereas the vertical flight would just be the buoyancy aspects. So as you start to move forward, then you're burning off all that hydrogen that you've put into the balloon to increase the thrust and get more speed when you start going.
So you're saying it would kind of take off vertically and then shoot forward?
Yeah.
That's interesting because you kind of see, with a lot of like, I'm a reporter. I do like some work with Third Phase and Moon, this UFO news network, and a lot of the footage of UFOs captured, they seem to do that. It's like they'll come up and then they take off in like a 50-degree or 90-degree angle, and it's kind of interesting. It's like, how is that possible? So I like the idea of it.
Yeah. I think that's the most efficient way to fly, but I don't know.
Someone here mentioned Babylonia and Vimanas. Do you know about the Vimanas, the Indian Vimanas?
I don't.
Oh my gosh, really? Okay, hold on. Let me pull this up here. So in India, there were all these like ancient descriptions of this aircraft called Vimanas, and they said that they were around like, I think it was like, someone had to help me in the comments here. I believe it was like
myself
5,000 years ago or something. But here, I'm pulling them up here. Okay. But they actually, so the Indian people actually have I believe it's the Epic of the Ramayana, but there's like a different document that they have where they actually talk about in detail what energy powered these. And like this is like the diagram. Okay, so this is what it was called. I've talked about this in a show before. But so it was called, where is it? Sorry, let me pull this up here. Okay, so it's called like something like the aeronautics of the text was something the aeronautics of, or something about aeronautical science, and I forget exactly what the text was called, but it was from 5,000 years ago, and it actually talks about aeronautics, and it talks about these different like mercury and these different kinds of things that could like power these ships, and they get like very into detail about it, and it's really fascinating. And they say that they used to fly around in these, and there's like legit like aeronautical, like, I don't know what the word is, but blueprints for these, and they really get into it. So I don't know, I'm surprised you haven't heard of these before, but yeah,
it's really fun. Yeah, you get kind of siloed sometimes, and yeah, so that's kind of cool. I'm gonna look it up. I put it into my Google search, so it's something to read about later.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting YouTube videos on it, definitely. So it's really fascinating. But there's a specific document, I can't think of the name of it, but it's like the something of aeronautics, and it was like a legit document that was like from like 5,000 years ago. So that might be something you'd be interested in seeing.
I'm down. I'm gonna check it out. You have to send me the link so I can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll find it after the show for sure. Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So, in regards to the future of aviation, I mean, what else can we get into here? Is there anything else you would like to cover with all this? I'm just trying to think. I don't want to like lead you anyway because I don't
Oh
want to
yeah,
bring up something that maybe you can't talk about.
no, yeah.
So,
Let's see. Yeah, let's see. I'm just looking at this real quick. So, let me take a look. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's a ton of things in aviation currently that are really cool. That I just think are in general. I think that it's really nice that there's like a little bit more investment going into like wing shaped designs because they're just really efficient at flight. I think a lot of the stuff for like um, like what as time goes on, I think augmented reality like the HoloLens, so you get to pop in and pull up a menu from your I think it just turned off, it died on me, but anyways, you can click here and then it brings up your whole thing, and then you can go through and do different things, and I think that's useful. That would be really cool. Obviously they have more advanced things than that in other applications, but for the consumer grade, and moving into consumable stuff that people can use, I think will be really cool.
do
Trying
you
to
think
think.
we're going to have like a Jetsons future at some point where
Oh,
people
for
will
sure,
all be
for
able to
sure.
have flying cars?
Yeah,
How do you
absolutely.
think that would be regulated? Like, I
Well,
mean,
people are
they
gonna
can't
have
put
to.
stop signs in the air.
Oh no.
So I
Well,
felt like it could only work with some sort of like self-driving technology, so
yeah.
people don't crash into each other.
Well, yeah. So there's a couple things that about I think that, but in airspace, you don't really worry about stopping because if you're flying in a certain direction, you're going to be at a certain altitude, and then based off of the you know airplane, it's going to have a higher efficiency at certain altitudes. So you are not typically going to see like a Cessna. You're not going to see a Cessna at 50,000 feet, right? Like it's gonna have its flight range based off of its, or I shouldn't say a Cessna. I should say, but like a small aircraft, because there are jets, Cessnas. I'm just saying that like a small propeller based plane is not going to fly as this at the same kind of category or height that a commercial airliner or a military jet would. So you have that, but then you also have the fact that when you're flying in a certain direction, you have to be at a certain altitude anyways. So you can't, that's how you avoid collisions, because you're never going to be in the same. You can't cross paths essentially. And then you have waypoints and things like that. So you'll have your kind of, if you were to take like the super high end of aviation and then kind of start to port it down and to say, okay, how do we make it more for everyday people that potentially have vertical and takeoff and landing crafts that they have access to. um, what does that look like? Or in the case of the aeromobile, there's the car that can drive like a car, and then you can take it to like a runway, and then its wings come out, and you can fly it like a plane. So,
I've seen these articles of these helicopters that are like the size of a car, and they can come down in a parking spot, and like the the propeller, the top can like fold up
oh yeah,
so
yeah,
that
but
it fits
yeah,
in the
yeah.
parking lot. I think that's really cool. What do you think about like space habitats? That's something I really like to get into in my presentation. I know, like, do you know about the orbital ring, that like Jeff Bezos has been working on, or I'm sorry, not yeah, Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin.
It's like a colony that
Yeah, it's like in a ring and it has its own climate. It's like climate controlled, and it's basically like it'd be like its own climate, and it's like this huge like orbital ring. And yeah, I think there's a lot of different concepts. They even have concepts of like hollowing out asteroids. I think there's the Stanford Taurus. That's one of them. There's a lot of different ones, and it's kind of interesting because I've been researching them a lot, and a lot of them actually are kind of like the concepts are made by sci-fi writers, but then a lot of these like space agencies have like decided like, oh, this is actually possible. We could actually make this, and I think it's really interesting because like, it has so many benefits. It's like first of all, you don't have to deal with like climate catastrophe like natural disasters on the earth, and then like second, it'll make it easier for like if we say we start mining asteroids, it'd be good to be up there. It'd be easier to like go off and mine asteroids, and then also like solar energy or even like anti-gravity like recreation in like some parts of it. But I know I think they already kind of figured out how to like control it to where it would not be anti-gravity like in the climate controlled part of it,
Hmm.
from my understanding. So I mean, do you think that's something that may be coming soon in our future that'd be really
That would be really
interesting?
cool. I think the 3D printers are, the additive manufacturing will really help boost that. I think that's really what's going to happen because, half the problem is the amount of energy and amount of resources it takes to get the thing to there in the first place. Well, a long time ago, I think it was like, I don't know, it was like when I was in high school, they had figured out how to do teleportation for like really small things. Um,
Really?
yeah, so I forget, I don't remember. I think it was like a popular mechanics thing. Like, how that goes. Like,
Wait,
um,
you like it would literally like be in one place and disappear and appear in another place?
yeah, they had
Or
some.
just kind of moving
I
their
forget.
very
I was a kid, and I remember it stuck out in my mind. I think I like read it in a popular mechanics book. I don't know, um, but yeah. So uh, I don't know. It was an interesting thing, but essentially they were able to like move small things very fast over a very long distance, or like not super long distances, but very fast over a distance. And it wouldn't do anything good for like something that's living. Like I don't think that you could do that, kind of process for something that's alive. But if you can focus a large amount of energy to push something without having to burn, fuel and stuff, uh, kind of like a railgun or I don't remember what it was. I have to go look it up now. But yeah, it was like a fun little article where they were like, yeah, scientists have made a something the size of you know a molecule teleport. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, but if
Do
you
you
were
think
able
that
to
has
like,
something with the idea of like quantum entanglement? Like
um,
it can be here or there, like
yeah,
that kind of
so quantum entanglement's kind of interesting too. Just the idea that you get something that's synergized, and it doesn't matter how far of a distance it is from its original point, it will continue to maintain its entanglement um, from from any distance. I think that's really cool. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It might have been that. I now I have to look it up. Now I feel like I'm talking about things that I don't know about. I'm like, I can't go into
No,
that.
I think it's really fascinating. And yeah, my thoughts with getting the materials for it was like, from what I was reading, it was saying that actually like once like these like stations are starting to be built, if we actually start asteroid mining, going off plan doing that, we could actually get the materials from asteroid mining and bring them back and work on them there instead of picking them up from Earth. I know you said you wanted to talk about space mining. What are your thoughts on asteroid mining? And I know there's an asteroid near us that has like $10 quadrillion worth of rare earth minerals on it. So
Mhm.
it's pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, I think if you gotta my way of doing it would be to get a railgun that could shoot railguns. And you would get a railgun on the Earth that then shot a railgun to the moon, that then shot railguns to like other planets, and then once they get there, then they have little robots that come out and then grab stuff and then put it on the railgun and shoot it back. I don't know. That was
Oh,
my
you
whole.
don't think people should do it?
No, I don't
Uh,
think humans should. I think like yeah, leave the space mining to the robots. But I mean, obviously, you'll at some point get humans out there. But I think like you know, um, it's really cool. That's one thing I think is really cool is the kind of neuromorphic chips that are coming along, and so you can teach you can teach robots and things to behave, at least in the way that the silicon is formed, that it stores the memory and the instruction in the same location, so it's a much more efficient process for like communicating. I don't know, that's something newer, so I know that not a lot of people are familiar with it, but they have these kind of new chips that have been built, and essentially they work more like a human brain as opposed to like a computer chip. So a computer chip has like an ALU, is algebraic logic unit, and then it will go through and pull memory and then basically run the bit sequences in order to get to process, right? And so you get like bottlenecks when you have like slow RAM or things like that. So they're constantly increasing the speed of the bus so that the CPUs can get more information, and then then the CPU becomes a bottleneck because it can't process enough of the information. But in the particular case of this, they put both the processing and the memory in the same location. So it works more like how a brain does, where your neuron does both the storage and the processing.
And you said these are made out of silicon?
Yeah, they're made out. They're
Interesting.
So I think that they're at like the 65 nanometers. So they're very large compared to like the cutting edge. The cutting edge, I think, is like at 3 or 2 nanometer now. But that's like in labs and like for like test bench. And then you have like the 5 nanometer, which is just like your iPhone and the new Macs and stuff like that. And they're going to be moving to the 3 nanometer pretty soon. But then like this one is like much older technology. It's like, I think like 65. And so it's much bigger in terms of its volume of space, but then it competing against like a chip that's like a 5 nanometer, it's still faster just because of the way that the storage of the memory is. So it's kind of cool. But if you have that, then you don't have to send a human out to space. You could just be like, hey, little robot, this is what you should do. And then it does it. And then because, like, I don't know. I don't think people really enjoy doing repetitive things, especially in isolation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's like these are like these people that would be sent out would be like astronauts or what that are like, normally like, more scientific minded, and they're just sent there to like dig an asteroid. It's really, like not really their area of expertise.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I think it is really interesting. Like my friend Brooks Agnew, who wrote Asteroid Mining, that's an engineer and like radio host and everything. He said that the way we could go about it is by extending our GPS system or putting a GPS system on the moon. Because he said like I forget what all he was saying with it, but he said there's something to do with like that is like the best way to go about is put a GPS system on the moon and then like kind of go from the moon to these asteroids.
Yeah, I think that would be yeah. I think it would be really good. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Like the GPS systems, like for like space, because that is like our original GPS, right? When you could see the stars in the night sky, you can't see them anymore. But people would navigate by them, using basic math and I think it was like trigonometry that they would use in order to determine where to go. So yeah, it's we've been navigating by stars for like forever, or celestial bodies, and so it's like sometimes there's like I think like aircrafts and things like that can lose GPS but continue to navigate because they'll have like a camera that's able to look at celestial bodies and then determine where it's located.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, this has been definitely a really fascinating conversation. And is there, I don't know if I usually go on for about an hour or so. I don't know if there's anything else you want to get into here.
Yeah. Maybe I'll pitch the computer science, go into computer science. I'm just playing. So yeah, I guess I've got my SR-71 Blackbird cup. So cheers. And then also, yeah, I know you didn't plug it on this thing, but the shaman spear. So this one was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was actually the one that's been behind me here on this show.
I didn't
This
know.
whole
So I
time,
was, oh yeah,
so
I'll get one. All right, cool.
it's
And then
pretty
yeah,
interesting.
ended up getting
Yeah.
a really cool one. So. Awesome. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a ton of things, that come to mind currently. I was just like in that mode of talking about random ideas and particularly like I'll start with a drone. I have a 3D printer, so I'm going to start with the Apolla Chariot as a drone, and I'll probably look at it differently than what knowing that I can't necessarily experiment on it the way that I want to here. Probably do a steam blimp, but that'll give you like some type of anti-gravity effect or a buoyant effect to get out, to get lift, and so you don't have to spend energy to stay in the air. And then we'll see how that progress comes. So hopefully now that I'm back stateside, I'll have some more time to tinker and see what comes up.
Awesome. So you're actually doing this. It's not just a joke. You're actually gonna start
I'm
making
gonna try.
this.
I mean,
Oh my god! What? I'm so excited.
It may, there's experimentation, and sometimes I get like into that mode where I just want to experiment. But I've been thinking about this for a while, so I'm like, okay, gotta have like, I obviously like I've been thinking about the mechanics of it for a while, even before before the Apollo Chariot. But then now I have a reason. I'm like, oh, somebody actually wants a UFO. It's okay. Let's and you'd be a great candidate because like I could see you like being in one, just being like, flying around.
Definitely. I mean, that's literally my number one dream is to have a flying saucer. I just want one so bad.
Right? And yeah, especially if it can float and you're just like sitting there buoyant. You're like, all right.
Yeah. That'd be so awesome.
I think it'd be fun.
And by the way, what are your thoughts on aliens? The government, there's so much in regards to government disclosure in this past couple years. They got the new agency. I always forget what it's called. It's like so many letters, but that's the UAP agency in the Pentagon.
So
and
the
then
Men in Black, right?
Yeah, like their version of the Men in Black. And then we have Space Force started recently, and all these reports. The Navy ship, I don't know if you heard about the Navy ship. They just
absolutely.
released that they were being chased by these balls of light.
Well, they weren't chased. Yeah. Well, sorry.
Or followed or whatever. I mean, so what are your thoughts on disclosure and ETs in general?
I think that give you my diplomatic answer. No, I think that it's a very, very large universe, and like if I were like to say there, so say we're not saying interstellar, but we're just saying solar system, right? So we're saying that okay, so there's another life form in our solar system. It's just not some of it's on Earth, but most of it isn't, right? So it's technology based. Wouldn't be this planet. It would have to be another planet, right? So then I would say that if I were to like say, oh yeah, there was like something like that, and be like, well, then what circumstances would that either allow that to happen? So it'd either have to be like a silicon-based planet, or it'd have to be a carbon-based planet, and it would also have to have water, right? So then it would be like, well, then you could say like maybe Neptune, right? So if you had like some type of ability in Neptune for something, because there's enough chemicals to create molecules that then somehow turn into life forms, and those life forms are continuously growing and evolving like they do on this planet, and they get to the point where you get an intelligence, and then that intelligence is capable enough to develop a language, and then from that compete and to develop a spacefaring capability. I would say it would be like Neptune or something like that, right? Because like the rest of them are all kind of like not. But then you think about like, okay, so if you're on Neptune and that is the case, what's like the gravity and the density of the planet, and how does that affect the physics for it, right? So it's like, well, why would they have better the ability, why would they have the ability to have better, equipped aircraft than we would if there was like some, creature that had, the ability to build stuff? And it'd be like, well, if they're in a highly dense area, right? So they're like in an ocean. So if you were to build, something in the ocean as opposed to building something on land, what are the differences that you get? You get a whole lot more pressure per square foot per meter down. So you're going to have really interesting properties when it comes to like metal smithing, right? So you'd be like, you know, I don't know, you'd have really interesting metal smithing capabilities, I guess, if you figured out how to do that without oxidization. And then once you figure all that out, then
There's like underwater like welders. I mean,
yeah,
I know I know some people that do that around here. It's kind of the same thing, right?
yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, so yeah, there'd be like a whole alien space people that would be able to build stuff in the water. And then if they came to Earth, right, why would we never interact with them? It's because they can't stay on land. They have to go back into an ocean because they have to be in a high density area in order to, like, I don't know. That was my thoughts on it. I was like, oh yeah, if that's where we
Interesting.
were in the solar system, then a planet with enough water and enough other chemicals for life to exist. I don't know. It would be kind of cool.
So you're saying like alien mermaids.
Alien mermaids, exactly.
I
Atlantis.
love it.
But yeah,
Wow.
Atlantis is like on a different planet entirely.
Interesting. Yeah, there's different kinds of like I mean, was it Jupiter is more of like a gaseous atmosphere. I mean, like that would feel completely different being here, like compared to there, and like, so I don't know. I always like to think like, these like beings on different planets. Like that's interesting that you say, like water beings. Like I haven't really thought about that as much. It's like, they don't have to just be like land beings. Like, do you think it's possible that there could be like beings that could live in like a more gaseous planet?
Potentially, yeah. I think, yeah. The problem I think with the gaseous planet ones would be them trying to escape their own planet. Like, right? If you were stuck on Jupiter and you had to figure out how to get off of Jupiter with gas, like it's like, I don't know. I feel like it would be difficult to escape your environment. But like, I feel like if you're a
I don't
water
know.
planet, you might be able to. I don't know. Whereas like us, we have like air and water and land, so it's like, I don't know. We have the ability to kind of jump off of it with rockets.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. But as far as it goes, I do think, yeah, there's definitely got to be extraterrestrial life. It's a very big place. Potentially, interplanetary civilizations, potentially interstellar civilizations. I think about the scale of it, like, and what would compel them to leave whatever grouping of group that they're in to go and visit another world. Be like, well, maybe it would be the scientist of that world that came to this world if that were the case. And so then they would have strict rules like in Star Trek where they're like, the Prime Directive or something?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
so
broke.
they're like, we cannot interfere, but we can observe. So that would be interesting. And then like the other potential of it, like this planet has been around for so long. It's been like around for billions of years. And then we think that, like, we're the first intelligent life forms to have, discovered technology and math and all that on this planet. But I was like, what if there was like another, obviously, based off evolution, it doesn't seem to be the case, but or what we've seen from evolution doesn't seem to be the case. But if there was another set of creatures, maybe hominoid, but maybe like even like dinosaur-like creatures that like figured out how to do space travel from this planet a long time ago and went off to another, universe or.
I totally believe that. I know, I'm really into like forbidden archaeology and like lost civilizations. That's like my forte. Like I love studying all that. I've been my whole life, and there's a lot of weird archaeology things that don't make sense, like super ancient human like skeletons that have been found. They're usually much bigger than us. And there's a lot of evidence of like super ancient technology, like I was showing you earlier, the Vimanas. And I always had this feeling like, with like plate tectonics, it's like it seems like the earth is always going kind of inside out, and then the magma comes out. So it's like the surface is constantly changing, and it seems like that's something that would take a lot of time, but like over like billions of years, just like I saw a documentary a while back where in Alexandria, Egypt, they were trying to dig down to find these ancient Roman roads from the time of Alexander the Great. And they had to dig a mile down to find those roads. And that was from like, like what, like 2,000 years ago. So,
Wow.
that's like really crazy to think about. I mean, if that was so far down from 2,000 years ago, imagine like why would it not be likely that there could be a civilization that could have been here 100,000 years ago or a million years ago? Like it would be so far buried, we wouldn't find the evidence of it. But there's so much like weird anomalies of like I see articles all the time because I'm interested in this stuff. It's like like screws like found in rocks or like ancient pipe systems that seem to be, millions of years old, or people are like, how is this even possible? Or like, human footprints next to dinosaur footprints, like fossilized or hominoid footprints. So I think it's very likely, like maybe they're not necessarily human, but they were human like. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be really interesting. Yeah, it would be so cool. I mean, I guess the only way that you could do it is if you could get something that was faster than the speed of light, shot it out, and then looked back at the Earth, and then you could see like backwards in time, like kind of how the James Webb Telescope is, right? Like, how would
I
you?
was just talking about that yesterday. It's like traveling through space is the same thing as traveling through time. So, isn't there like some anomaly, like if you go so far out into space and then you come back, then everyone here would have aged like 20 years and you haven't at all or something?
Yeah, I
I
think
thought I
that's
read
like
something like
general
that
relativity.
before.
Was it? Is it? Yeah, but anyways, the faster you go, the you experience time differently based off of the speed that you're going. So if you're going very fast, time is like at a crawl, and then if you're like going very slow, then time speeds up. So like there's like an astronaut that was like circling the Earth for like 2 years, and he had a twin. And when he came back, he was like younger than his twin, and so they proved it.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, I know just like, the mass of the Great Pyramid, if you're at the bottom of the Great Pyramid just from the mass of it, time is technically you experience time differently than anywhere else outside of it.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
a
it's really
physicist, so I'm just like, there's so many cool things, and yeah, I don't know. I think yeah, that I my two things are like, right, like I wonder if there was ever a civilization that ever previous to like ours that was able to like do things like have rockets or flying vehicles or anything like that, that completely got eliminated or eradicated or potentially
or
something
left
left. It
with
was I don't
someone
know.
else.
I think that's always like an interesting thing. Yeah, because like yeah, it took a year, 1,000 years for or 2,000 years for a mile down of like sediment to build. I mean, and then there's so much of the earth that we don't even see, like because there's like the rainforests and a lot of other
And
things.
there's so much being uncovered there with the radar technology now in the Amazon rainforest with like pyramids. They're finding tons and tons of pyramids. And, it's something else that came to mind for me are the Mayans. The Mayan civilization, or a large portion of it, at one point just completely vanished. Like no one knew what happened to them. I mean, there's like some left over, but if you look into it, like there's like this one point where the civilization just completely vanished, and it was like said that they had just like left and like I don't know, maybe.
wandered off. They're like, we've got this great city, but it's time for us to go.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say like maybe they figured out some sort of space technology or something and took off. So I don't
Right.
know.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. There's so many like mysteries, which is like really fun. And I don't know. I think like we're becoming more alien like anyways, like in the sense of like our science fiction aliens, we're becoming more like them. Like, I don't know. So I was thinking, yeah, you should write a book. That's what you should do. You should
I would
write
definitely plan on it.
a fantasy novel of like tie it all together because it sounds like you like I mean I
Yeah. I have like a kind of like a trilogy in mind, but then I
oh
also have my solutions for humanity
yeah
like thing that I've been working like I kind of want to turn my presentation into a book where that would be like, more scientific or nonfiction. But I've been thinking that about the sci-fi idea with it. Everyone's been telling me that too, so I don't know.
I mean yeah and then you could literally continue to keep the name because like you built your like the Apollo's Odyssey series right it could be more than a trilogy like you do like trilogy sets that you release like I was really into
Okay.
Redwall. Did you ever read
Into
that
what?
Redwall?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Okay yeah it's just like a bunch
Is
of
it a
it's like
sci-fi series?
it's like a it's like a similar it's like a and it's like a bunch of animals so it's like they have a bunch of stories about like badgers and mice and owls and eagles and they all have like human they're all personified so they have like their like it was like a series I read in middle school but it was really fun because it's just random but yeah it was just like that but the thing about the Redwall series is that there was like I think there's like 50 books on it or something like that. I don't know. There's like a ton of them. Obviously, I don't think you would write 50 books because then you just be sitting there writing all the time. But like, the once you
I've
get
been reading Nora Roberts lately. I'm a huge reader, and I've been reading Nora Roberts, this kind of fantasy, sci-fi, not really sci-fi as much,
Mhm.
but fantasy author, and she has written like I think like over 200 books or something like that. And I'm like, I was just like, I was looking into her because I'm just like amazed. I've read like I'm in the middle of a trilogy by her right now, and I finished another one like the other month. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, what does she do? And I looked online and she said that she writes 8 hours a day, even when she's on vacation.
Wow.
And I mean, her concepts are crazy. So the trilogy I'm reading right now, it's like it's really interesting because she came out with it in 2017, which is really weird because it's about a global pandemic that happens, but it happens because of dark magic, and it has to do with the ancient like Tuatha De Danann, which is like supposedly the civilization that like Red has evolved from. Like if you look it up, like that's scientifically what it says. But so when the pandemic hit, it was like within 2 weeks, 85% of the planet died, like all of the population of the entire planet. But the people that were left over, they either just, they're just normal people that survived and were naturally immune, or they something in their genes got unlocked to where they either became like elves or like magic kind of or like shapeshifters. Like so they were called the uncannies. And then there was like this war. So it was like like the next book, it's like, like 14 years later, and it's like there's this war because like the government or what was left of the government that are actually human, they're going around getting all the people that were the uncannies because they thought that maybe they started the pandemic even though they didn't, and they were like rounding them up and putting them in like basically like concentration camps to like experiment on them. So then there's like this like war between the humans that are siding with the uncannies and then like the dark uncannies, which are like dark magic people. And sorry, I'm on like on a weird
Yeah,
rant, but
that's
it's
super
really
cool. No,
fascinating.
I love those series. I love series like that. That's yeah, I think that's fun, especially like I'm not sure if she wrote it during this time or if she wrote it before.
It came out in 2017. That's what's
Oh yeah.
crazy about it. And the whole beginning of it kind of reads like, it's talking about the CDC and everything. And it kind of reads like how the beginning of everything started happening in 2020, except, I mean, it was just,
Oh yeah. You're right.
actually a disaster. Not really as much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. That's really cool though. I'll have to. There's so many good creative minds that write, but yeah, I don't think I could do 8 hours a day. I write code and I'm like, like, but maybe it would be easier. Maybe it would be harder. I don't know. I guess
Maybe
like,
you're technically like writing code 8 hours a day or
yeah, I
so,
don't
aren't
write
you?
code for eight
Or
hours a day
maybe
though.
not that much.
Yeah, I write code, but like I would say that it depends because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't simply write like there's programs and applications, and then there's like the infrastructure and the security, and so there's like a bunch of things that I have to do, and not all of them are programming. So I don't know. So there's some programming that obviously a significant amount of my time goes into programming, but there's a significant amount of time that's like not spent programming, where I'm like looking at uh, a completely different set of problems that are a completely different skill set, which is kind of interesting. I don't like when you're in the software world. It's like you have, I guess, camps, right? So there's like the networking, and there's like the DevOps, and there's like the SecOps, and then there's like the programming, and then within programming there's like the back end and the front end, and then there's like a bunch of different things that it's like a whole bunch of different worlds. And so at this point in my career, I like span over quite a few of those different worlds. So I have to switch hats, and so I'm programming sometimes, and sometimes it's really nice to I could just be heads down writing code, but then sometimes it's like I'm looking at how to do other things, and I can't go into that. So, but yeah, so it's just, but yeah, if it used to be nice. I used to be able to just sit back and code all the time, but now it's just a bigger field and different things to focus on. So I don't get to just program all the time. Yeah, if I was writing every day for 8 hours, that would be intense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, trying to think. I don't know if you wanted to get into anything else tonight. I'm trying to think of, what else. If we had anything else we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, yeah. I just wish I had more time to set up and be prepared. It's like,
Yeah, you can come back anytime if you have any concepts you want to talk about. A lot of people I bring on my show are repeat guests. And what would be really interesting is if I did a roundtable with you and Jim Goodall. I brought you both on at the same time.
that would be, yeah, that would be cool. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, that would. I mean, I think what he's done is absolutely awesome. So that
Yeah,
would
he
be
he was down to
fangirling.
come on my show anytime,
Yeah,
so maybe I can introduce you guys through my show, and we can just do a roundtable on,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
aerospace and
The only thing, yeah, I'll tell you later, but yeah,
yeah. Okay, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I got
because yeah, but it would be really fun to talk, even if it wasn't like public, so that would be fun. So yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, definitely. So thanks for having me. This was fun. It's like a chat. Or like,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I like to keep it conversational. So yeah, let me know, if usually I end out the show with like, usually the person has like, their own website of all the stuff they do and everything, but you're top secret, so you don't have that. But it's
exactly.
okay. So if you have any concepts, let me know if you want to come back on and talk some other time. You can get your whiteboard thing set up and maybe
Yeah,
get into it a little more. It'll be really fun.
yeah. Maybe I'll have to put some things together. I'll try to be more functional. So maybe have a drone, or maybe potentially show you the design in an AR world, or something fun, something more fun than this. I've only been back in the United States for 2 days, so I'm just like, and then
Oh no, it's okay. It's been interesting. So yeah, really enjoy it. And you're saying you could connect the AR thing through here to
yeah, so I can do like so you can see what I'm seeing.
Whoa. Okay, that would be really interesting. Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like I got to get set up. I was actually trying to do that today, and I was like,
Yeah, no. In the future, I'm gonna be in Thailand for a couple weeks, so maybe like next month, or let me know when you would like to, if you have any concepts to get into that again. So before I close this out, I want to remind everyone to go check out my art at shamanspears.com. If you want to help support my show, I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the show, but also I have these conference tickets I need to sell for the Mount Shasta Summer Conference. So definitely check those out. And these amazing like EMF creations, Organite creations I made. So yeah, if you want to help support my show and keep me going, please go to shamanspears.com and check those out. All right, Jason, so thanks so much for coming on here, and I would absolutely love to have you on here again sometime. And I have a new closer to put to close out, which I'm excited to share with everyone right now. So thanks everyone for joining me tonight on Apollo's Odyssey, and until next time, over and out.